Greetings, fellow humans. Bad Mark here with another transmission from MechTech Keyboards, and today we're taking a look at an interesting keyboard from Weikav. Weikav has been putting out some really nice aluminum keyboards at affordable prices. Now, this one was sent out to me by MechKeys, and I will include a link down below. This keyboard, I really don't know what else to say about it. I've only seen a few pictures. I haven't stayed away from reviews and sound tests and everything like that. So I kind of going into it a little blind, except for some of the pictures. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. I haven't seen that. It has a feature I haven't seen, or a design choice I haven't seen on other keyboards. So without keeping you in further suspense, let's go ahead and take a look at what's in the box. Let's take a look at the Weikav Stars80 from MechKeys. In the box, we have an accessories box, and we have a user quick start guide, which has looks like a good amount of the connection modes, as well as light controls in here. This is a 3-mode keyboard. It also includes a product warranty certificate. So included in the box, we also have the USB-A to USB-C rubberized cable and a standard switch and keycap puller. Now, it's probably pretty bare, because this is a bare bones kit. Like I said, I hadn't even opened it yet because I didn't want to start playing around with it, but this is a bare bones kit. So we're going to be building this up today, picking out some switches, picking out some keycaps, and checking out what this keyboard sounds like built up. And here we are with the Weikav Stars80. And I've got to say, it's a nice looking board. We've got an FR4 plate. It looks like they included a couple of switches to keep the plate and the PCB together. Sometimes they don't use screws. The switches does a good enough job. It's definitely a gasket mount, but it's one of the stiffer gasket mounts. We've got some plate mounted stabilizers. We'll have to see if we have the capacity to put in screw-in stabilizers, but today we're just going to stick with it stock. Now, this is what I was talking about, and as far as the design goes, it has these I don't know, I would have called this like the crunch or the fall or the break or something along those lines. I mean, that's just me personally, but I really do like that. There are, from what I've seen in the pictures, there are LEDs down below those. So you have one at each corner, and I like that counter corner. I don't know, for me, that's a symmetry that I like. So it is really cool. I think it does look like we have the ability for stepped or normal caps locks, but I don't see, well, there might be alternate layouts with a different plate. Weikav also makes the Lucky 65, and that appears to have some alternate layouts if you have a different plate, like the I think a split left and a split backspace, if I'm not mistaken. So we've got something nice to look at from up top, and then we can flip it over, and we can see that we have what I like to call like a metallic reptile skin. It's very, it's got a very cool texture to it. And this is where we have the 2.4 gigahertz dongle hidden with a nice magnetic pocket. They did this in the Lucky 65v2, and I think that this is a good way to do it. Just put it into the weight, basically integrate it with the weight, and there you go. It's magnetic. I haven't had on the Lucky any issues even moving the keyboard around with that door falling off. It's not a branded dongle, so probably going to put a sticker on it just in case something were to happen, but that magnet is pretty strong. One thing that I noticed, or failed to notice, was that there are no bolts down there. So I'm going to assume, yep, we have a quick release mechanism top. Basically, it's the ball latch system, and there we can see the LEDs. All right, setting that aside, we can go ahead and, all right, we are connected directly to those LEDs, so we don't have much room here. So it does look like we have the step caps lock. Oh, looks like we might actually have ISO here. And we do have two different spots for the space bar, but it doesn't look like we have 7U capability, or do we? Oh, Oh, okay. It looks like it's a split space bar that it allows because these under the foam right there. So yeah, there are some alternate layouts on this PCB. So definitely getting a hold of the plate file would be a nice thing. I don't think that they share it, but if for some reason they do or I find it, I'll put a link down in the video description below. We have these tadpole-like gaskets. So that's where we're getting that little bit of flex, not crazy flex, but just a little bit of flex. It looks like we've got some machining oil left over there. But we have a nice F13 TKL that appears to either have a split space. I mean, it does have the alternate caps lock, and I don't see alternate backspace split. So now obviously this would be nice with the pogo pins, but this is quite an affordable keyboard compared to what keyboards were just even a little while back. And having the quick latch mechanism, I mean, in my opinion, is a huge improvement, and it at a great price. So like I said, today we're going to be sticking stock with this Weikav. I'm going to go ahead and let's see. I think this is, if I'm not mistaken, this looks like because they have a warm white and a cool white, I think. And I'm going to say this is the warm white. So I think a beige set would look nice with this. And these appear to be some KTT switches, but I don't think I have any that, huh? Or do I? Let's see what we've got. All right, so for switches, I found these one day just browsing AliExpress, and I believe it was one of those, I can't keep up. There's always a sale for something. It might have been 11.11, but these were, I want to say 15 and change for 100 of them, or 110 of them. These are MMD Ink Orange. And while they are tactile, they list them as a rapid trigger, and it has a 50-point actuation, or 50 gram actuation with a 60 gram bottom out. It feels, I don't want to say as light as a brown. It is the entire press is a bump. So it's like a capital D. You're never off the bump. It doesn't feel like there's any pre-travel. It literally just drops you right into that tactility. It's that top bump. It almost, because I call it for gamers, I could see how, I mean, it's gonna, you know, it's got the standard tactile, you know, I've got to overcome, but once you overcome that, boom, it just drops down the cliff. So it's an interesting tactile. It has a built-in diffuse. Is that? It might pop out. Oh yeah, it does pop out. Never mind. It is. So you probably could get two different sound signatures. I found with a lot of these that do have the removable. And of course, it doesn't want to come out for me. It did click. Yeah, without it, you definitely get a more higher pitch, clacky pitch out of the switch. But with this, because it's a nice hunk of plastic, so it's going to add more mass to it, it deepens the tone on the switch. So these should be fun to go ahead and load up on here, test out a new switch, see what it sounds like. Then I've got this set. I came across it one day on Amazon, I believe, and it is called Climbing Yellow. I believe it's a Dye Sub set. Now, obviously, it's gotten a little beat up there, but it's a cherry profile Dye Sub, and this also was on sale. I can't recall what I paid for it, though I know it was fairly inexpensive. Z made it over there. All right. So these are pretty thick. Let's see, how thick are they? Oh, they're surprisingly thinner than I thought. I thought they were going to be a little bit thicker, but they feel thicker. They don't feel very, they're not at all flexible, but 1.2. So this is probably going to be a clackier build, if nothing else. But let's go ahead and load up the switches. load up the keycap, see what we think about it, go ahead and plug it in, see what it looks like and everything, get to the specs, and then get to the sound test. I wanted to break in here real quick. So now, while this does have the center hole post cut out for the hi-fi layers, the PET layer that's above the PCB and the IXPE sheet, it doesn't have the holes for the pins. And despite this being an FR4 plate, it has a lot of flex cuts and it is quite flexy. So it's going to be a little bit more work for the top and the bottom rows. Edges, not so much, but if this is one of your first builds, I would really suggest, especially since it's so easy to open, opening it up and then supporting the back of each PCB socket the first time that you install switches, because that way you're going to be punching the holes through, and after that it shouldn't be that much of a problem. And if you do plan to use the alternate layout switches, obviously punch those out as well. But I wanted to take a look at the stabilizers real quick. I completely forgot to even look if it had PCB support for stabilizers. I think it did, but I don't recall now. But I want to check out these stock stabilizers. These are the palm stabilizers. They don't need clipping. They have little pads, and it looks like they are lubricated on both the elbows and on the inside of the housing. But yeah, let me check. I can't see real quick because of the layer. So pull this off. Well, that's unfortunate, I guess, because of all the alternate layouts that are on here. Yeah, there's even pads for extra hot swap sockets here, but there is no support for screw-in stabilizers. So let's hope these are good. I mean, they feel fine for right now, but I haven't loaded keys up on them yet, but I did want to check that out. But while we have it with the switches bare like this, let's go ahead and see what it looks like on. Wow. Yeah, that light effect is pretty cool, I gotta say. I mean, in a world full of, designs that kind of just copy themselves. I mean, yes, this is just a wedge, design, but it's got this little bit of extra that just kind of, it adds that personality. It adds that customization. And I mean, if nothing else, this hobby is, practically all about, what the self likes. I enjoy this, I enjoy that. This is, prettier. This color is nice. If I want to change, I don't have that's just on and off, but go through effects, but I can make it be more mine, if that makes any sense. Obviously in a Barebone kit, definitely it's more of a custom because you're picking out the switches, you're picking out the keycaps. So, but like I said, if this is one of your first builds, I would definitely recommend just taking out the PCB, obviously being careful to disconnect the JST connectors, and supporting, as you put in the switch, support the socket for that switch. That way you're not taking a risk of popping off any sockets. And here we are. So let's go ahead and load up the keycaps, and we'll be right back. And here we are with the Weikav Stars80 all built up, and I've got to say, I'm honestly very impressed. Like I said, these MMD switches, best way I can describe them, they're a tactile switch for a linear lover, if that makes any sense, because while they do have the tactile bump, it is more of a button press as opposed to an interruption if that makes any sense, because the whole downstroke is the bump. So it really, I honestly think that a lot of linear lovers would be fine with this switch. They call it a gaming switch. Perhaps that's why. I'm not sure. But in this build, with these keycaps, which I did measure, they're actually 1.4. I needed to zero out my calipers, but these are actually 1.4, which I thought that made more sense because they definitely felt a little thicker to me. I was going to guess 1.5, but the keycaps are a little tight. I tried them on a couple of different switches, and I mean, after a couple of times inserting and removing it, they seem to be fine now. So some of these are not all the way in, but with these switches and this keycap set, which I gotta say, I mean, I like that it had the step caps lock key, and I love the gradient of it. And I put the fire symbol as the F13 key, but I actually quite like it. And I think that, I mean, this build, for what it is, sounds quite deep and thoughtful. I thought it was going to be on the claggier end, but I have my furnace going right now, so it's really hard to catch a good sound test, but you'll definitely be able to hear it here in the end for the sound test. But I've got to say, this is a lovely build. It sounds great stock. I know I would prefer the option to have a screw-in stabilizer support on the PCB, but the fact that it has alternate layouts, I really would love to see, you know, like, hey, here's the alternate layouts, and here's where you can get the plate, or even better, here's the plate included. I've received several keyboards, Bonski, Kako, other brands, that when they have extra plates, they'll include two plates, like, you know, here's two plates, you pick. And I mean, I don't mind paying a few dollars more for a kit, especially if it has alternate layouts and the plate that comes with it, you know, doesn't have the cutouts for all those alternate layouts. Then it's like, yes, please include an extra plate, or at least as an option. But that's just me ranting. Let's go ahead and plug her in, where you know what it looks like. But I gotta say, I kind of actually, well, with this keycap set anyway, and these switches, the copper that is on the FR4 plate can be seen quite well between the keycaps, and I think it looks pretty cool. If I had the time, and if this was actually QMK, I'd try to do some sort of fire effect to where these would like basically cycle through like a yellow, orange, red, but you know, like a crackling type. But that, I mean, I'd have to find the QMK source. Like I said, I don't know if that exists, and if it does, most likely doesn't have the wireless code in it. So that's one thing with some of these boards, that they do actually have QMK source out there, but what they don't tell you is if you do compile it, it's only for, it's basically going to turn your keyboard from a 3-mode into a wired keyboard, because they don't release the source code, because those are private blobs, and that's where a lot of the issues come with as far as QMK licensing goes. Like, so let me see. Do I have to go specifically to wired mode? Let me see. So function T puts us in wired mode. Function backspace is to toggle the LEDs. Function insert is going to go through the effects. Function delete is going to cycle us through colors. Function N turns off the light strip on the side. And of course, adjustment here. Just the specs. Today we're taking a look at the Weikav Stars80v2, an aluminum 3-mode via TKL. It is listed as QMK, but the QMK source is not readily available. It has a gasket-mounted flex-cut FR4 plate with plate-mounted stabilizers and no PCB support for screw-in stabilizers. It is via programmable, has alternate key layouts, the step caps lock being the only one that can be used with the included plate. It has a 1.2 millimeter 3 and 5 pin hot swap south facing PCB with hi-fi layers. It is preloaded with an 8,000 milliamp hour battery. Comes weighing in at 2,080 grams barebone and 2,370 grams fully loaded. The chin of this keyboard sits at 23 millimeters, while the back sits at 41 millimeters from the typing surface, providing for a default typing angle of 9 degrees. This keyboard MSRP is $499.99 on mechkeys.com, links below. So really, let's be honest. I mean, what the market was a year and a half ago, this keyboard easily would have sold for $300. And I mean, that's just ballparking it. Obviously, it's a guess, but similar TKLs that I saw back then that had maybe some other design features, that's what they would be going for. To see this, I mean, yes, barebone, but $99. I mean, I remember when $99 was like, hey, I got a good deal on a plastic GMMK TKL. I mean, things have changed so substantially. $99, I mean, would get you a royal kludge back in the day. You know, maybe have enough left over to get a cheap set of keycaps, but what we're able to buy and build nowadays, because I mean, like I said, I paid $15 for these MMD Ink Orange tactile switches. This keycap set, I want to say it was like $17.99. Again, it was on sale, and I'll have links to all these below. But $99 for the base. I mean, you're talking under $140 all in, which is just amazing for this level quality keyboard. And here, I mean, just a quick sound profile, because I think it sounds pretty deep. But you guys can tell me if you agree down in the comment section below, and obviously I'll have a full sound test here, but it sounds amazing stock. It's just incredible that this kind of keyboard can be bought for that price. Not only that, I mean, it has quick release. I mean, it's mind-blowing. Now, the QMK part. A lot of companies keep saying that, hey, we have QMK Via. I don't know if they're actually built on QMK, because for a while there, it really did appear, especially because no QMK codes or none that they have programmed for would allow it to be passed through using the any key to pass directly key codes down into the QMK firmware. And just as a clarification, because I mean, people are like, what's Via firmware? Well, Via isn't necessarily a firmware. It's a key map, and it is an interface to access features that have been enabled in QMK. Because QMK, I mean, not only do you do the matrix, you have features, you can turn features on or off, and, like adjusting the deep bounce rate to, creating custom light effects to, doing special bindings, on and on and on and on. Basically, if you know how to program C and you're not reaching any limitation of the MCU and or of the QMK framework, then, I mean, basically you can do, whatever you'd like. You'd be able to, write a piece that sends a signal over USB to keep, track of your words per minute if you wanted to. There's a lot of things you can do, but a lot of companies are selling keyboards and saying QMK Via, but all you get is a JSON file. Well, that's a Via configurable keyboard, and technically it's not even that, because they haven't submitted it to Via so that Via can include it, because Via also wants the source control. QMK, their license says that if you're going to use our firmware, then you have to share all of the source. That includes the source for wireless connectivity. That's the thing. They're using private blobs, or let's just say drivers, that they don't have the source control to, and that's why a lot of the source control that you do find for some of these QMK Via keyboards, if you actually were to build it and flash it, if it's not specifically saying that it's 3 mode, you run the risk of turning it into a single mode board. That again depends on how the source code is released, because I mean, there are a few of them out there that actually do release the source code with the private blob, so you can build the source control, say the NuPhy for example, but they're not submitting their source code to QMK, and they're not following the QMK guidelines. They're not sharing the source of those private blobs, and that's where they're in violation of the QMK license agreement. But it's like, well, they act like, hey, we're not in the US, so whatever. But that's neither here nor there. When it comes to this keyboard, this is a lovely built keyboard. It sounds great. Yes, it has VIA, so I can program it from my Arch workstation, so I'm happy about that. I love how it sounds stock. Like I said, I thought because those switches, I want to say they're polycarbonate. I didn't find anything other than the actuation points or the force, but I would guess it's a polycarbonate, so I just assumed that they were going to be more clacky, which is fine with me. I've really learned to enjoy all spectrums. There's hardly a keyboard that I come across I don't like. If I come across a keyboard I don't like, it's not personal against the keyboard. It's like, usually it's a matter of who made this decision and why. But never mind. Anyway, I personally, I enjoy this. I'm going to add this to my rotation. Weikav does have a new one out, the D75, I believe, and I think Weikav has set that out for me for review, so I should have that here in the near future. I do hope that you guys enjoyed the build and review of this Weikav Stars80. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them down below. I will be coming back to this because I do want to try more foamless builds, and I'm working on my 75% tier list video. I'm probably going to do a 65% and a TKL, because there have been some really nice TKLs and 65% that have also come out, so I don't want to just stick to one. And I also am trying to do a couple other things, a lot of things all at the same time. But anyway, I want to wish everybody out there in YouTube land a wonderful rest of your day, and until the next transmission, keep calm and keyboard on.